Welcome back to Property Playbook. We're your hosts, Elena Cerditas
and Erica Reddy-Choquette.
And today we have Tom from Dominion Lending, and we're going to talk all things the new buyer programs to help new buyers get into the market.
I think this is great. I'm actually very excited to hear what Tom has to say, and I think it could get spicy because before we shot this, we had a little side chat, and this one was getting fiery. So, Tom, why don't you run us through what the new incentives are and what's just kind of come into place for buyers?
Well, thanks for having me on your podcast. I really appreciate being here. And today's announcement, it seems to be one of the biggest announcements that we've heard in years. And that is now you're able to purchase real estate up to $1.5 million insured. Whereas what that means is you have to put 20% prior to, but now you can put less than 20% of up to 1.5. So how that might look for a buyer that was purchasing a property before these new rules would have to put down $300,000. And if everything remains the same with their tiered system, so first $500,000 at 5%, and then the remaining at 10%, that could put a buyer at 1.5 with as low as $125,000 down.
See, I mean, I think this is personally a game changer because there's a lot of people that get stuck, I think, at that $1 million mark. The number of times I've seen offers like 999, and agents are like, my client just can't go above $1 million because
they're at the mercy of their down payment.
Exactly. They need that insured product.
Right.
So to be able to go up to 1.5, I think opens up a huge pool of potential candidates that now can kind of crack into the housing market because the challenge is there aren't a lot of houses out there for under $1 million.
Well, we do have buyers that can afford more than $1 million, except that they've just been out of university for, let's say, 5 years. They've been able to set some money aside, but they find it difficult because rent's not cheap in the city either. But they have put some money aside, and but they don't have that $300,000 to put down. Maybe they have $150,000, so they're still waiting to build that equity, to build that down payment to afford a property that they want to move into. So I think it's a game changer as well. There's been some other changes with amortization periods. So a few weeks ago, it was announced that if you were to purchase pre-construction or newly built homes, and you're a first-time buyer, that you could amortize over 30 years. And what does that mean? That means your payment is lower, and that means you can afford more. Now,
I'm about to jump out of my seat. I'm going to interrupt you, Tom. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
Let me tell you, this is another version of the government being like, let's try and help people and see if this actually helps. Sorry, this is probably going to be the most controversial episode that me and Erica are in. Erica's like being like, please stop.
No.
Okay, pre-construction. Let's talk about it. You want to put 5% down or less than 20% down. What builder is giving that incentive? Very, very few, if any. So regardless of this whole 30-year amortization, you could put less than 20% down. Builders also have to be on board of offering the product with the down payment of less than 20%, which is very, very rare. So is this helping people, yes or no? Or is it another way for politicians to say that they're helping and it's not actually helping?
Well, I think it depends. I mean, sure, if you're looking at the pre-con market, I think the pre-construction market is pretty kind of set for the most part in what the deposit structure looks like.
But that's what we were talking about. New construction, 30-year amortization, less than 20% down. That was one of the new policies that came into effect. Now find me a new construction that you could put less than 20%. That's my argument. It's
well, they're starting. That's the thing. They're starting to need to because they have to incentivize people to buy them.
And maybe now that they have these programs in place for the 30 years, you'll start seeing builders amend their deposit structures. Maybe they might say, we can change that for 5%, given now that people can qualify for more. But again, this is all fresh off the plates this morning, and we'll see how things pan out.
I think the pre-con one, I agree. I think you'd have to see deposit structures change for that to really take effect. But I think the one that actually does open up a lot of possibility is that $1 million to 1.5. I think that's a big threshold because a lot of the first-time buyers, or first-time home buyers, I should say, not buyers, because not every first-time buyer is looking between $1 million and $1.5 million. But I do think we have a lot of product in our city here where people, they get blocked out at that having to stop at 999, and now they don't have to stop there. They've got the ability to go up, and there are more options for them, 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, that now to me are options for them that weren't options before. So that piece I actually think is huge.
Well, there was a change too. So there's different news outlets that are coming out. Everyone has, what they have to say about this new 30-year amortization rule. So again, it just happened today. Things aren't clear 100%, but I have read that 30-year has changed for first-time buyers, that it doesn't have to be pre-construction or newly built if you're a first-time buyer. Now, if you're a second or third time or fourth time buyer and you're buying a principal residence, because you can't get an insured mortgage for investment properties for like a single family investment property. So someone who has purchased in the past, this could be their third property, but they don't own, but they want to buy pre-construction, then from what it sounds to me is that those people can qualify using a 30-year amortization. But from what I read is that if you're a first-time buyer, as of today, as of December 15th, it could be a newly built or it could be resale.
Interesting. Yeah. You are being quiet.
I'm being quiet.
No, but honestly, if we flip to the million, the change that I think probably has the greater impact, the million to 1.5.
What we're failing to have a conversation about is they still need to qualify for that higher amount. And sometimes you're right. Sometimes they just they could have qualified for it. They didn't have the down payment.
And I think that is a lot of what we see is they've got the down payment, but they've got the ability to qualify, but they don't have the down payment. And if they had that down payment, they would be going up to that higher price point.
See, I think this is going to affect very few people. I think per year, and this is each one of us, maybe 2 to 3 clients each that this will affect. And the grand scheme of things, it doesn't affect as many people as most people are going to be under the impression that it will affect.
See, I really think that $1 million mark is a tipping point that people really struggle with. I see so many clients of mine that go...
But now you're going to say that, okay, they can go up to 1.5, then wouldn't you say the exact same thing? Now we're going to have more buyers in that 1.2, 1.3, 1.4, and now that price point is going to move up in the scale because now more people can afford it? Because it used to be that the moment we knew someone could go over $1 million, you had a little bit less competition.
But there's still a lot more product that is offered between $1 million and 1.5, and that still gets you a lot more. Like when you're on the cusp of trying to buy something and $1 million's your cutoff, it's a really, really tricky cutoff. So I think when you open that cutoff by $500,000, that gives you a much greater margin of offerings and properties and things that you can look at. And sure, to your point, could we see the scale of how competitive $1 million get more competitive right at the 1.5 mark? I mean, jury's out. I don't disagree with you that could then become a more competitive price point. But I do believe there's a lot more offering between $1 million and 1.5 that buyers will now be able to get their hands on.
Yeah. I would be interested in knowing the exact number of how many people qualified for 999 and they would have qualified for more money based on their income if they just had a little bit more money down.
Well, I guess flip it over from your side of things, Tom.
I think for someone that wanted to buy for, say, $1.05 million, right, versus 999, that's a difference of a $200,000 down payment or a $75,000 down payment. So that difference in $50,000 purchase price, they can definitely show that they can qualify for that. But again, they're at the mercy of their down payment where they don't have that extra $125,000 to put down. So I think that there's definitely going to be a lot more activity when it comes to prices that or properties that were priced from, say, $1 million to $1.1 million, because that affordability is still going to be the same for that person that was affording $999 potentially. But again,
well, how much do you need to make to afford 1.5 with the new policy? How much did you need to make to afford 999?
Rule of thumb is about 4 to 5 times your income. It all depends too. If you're buying a condo and it's got maintenance fees and high taxes, and that's why we usually like to start around 4 times your income. So if you're making $200,000 a year on an insured mortgage, you're looking at a mortgage of about $800,000.
But I think the other thing too that's probably notable, and I think you kind of just alluded to this a little bit, is if somebody was looking at $1 million and they were stuck right at $1 million, and now maybe it opens up to $1.05 million or 1.1, it's not necessarily that someone's going to go, great, I was looking right around $1 million, and now I'm just going to jump to 1.5 because all of a sudden there's this insured product. So I think that there's probably a little bit of this just opens people up to have a little bit more flexibility, still within their parameters of qualifications, of course, but that, you know, they can just get themselves into something that they were hoping to get into that they maybe couldn't get into before. I mean, I don't know that you're going to see people adding $500K to their purchasing power because to your point on affordability, I still think that is definitely a conversation.
And even with gifted down payments, I think if you're getting a gift from, let's say, a parent, it would be a lot easier for a parent to gift 125,000 than it would be for them to gift, say, 300,000 on a $1.5 million purchase price.
Sure.
So I think that opens up a lot more, possibilities for people to come up with that down payment. And like I said, someone could be at school for and have student loans that they've just paid off, and now they're starting to build some equity or starting to build some savings. But it's going to take them that much longer to get to that $300,000 mark if they want to buy for 1.5. Whereas, they could be coming out of school making $200,000-$300,000, being able to afford that property, but not having that down payment. So, like I said, I don't think it's going to be everybody.
But there's a limited amount of people that come out of school that are making $200,000 to $300,000 a year. It's not everyone, and I think that's the part where the government's not understanding, or they're, it's clickbait. People are getting excited, like, oh, maybe it's going to be more affordable, maybe it's going to be more affordable, but it's going to be more affordable for very few people, is my argument. And maybe I'm completely wrong, but only time will tell if this helps so many more people than I think it's going to help.
I mean, I think it does. I honestly think it makes a big difference, because I've seen and dealt with and been on both sides of buyers and sellers, being the listing agent, where I've had many of agents be like, listen, sorry, they can only go, and you get, 5 offers on an offer night, and 3 of them are 999, 999, 999. I mean, that's 3 people right there that this would help. So I step back and go, okay, on those metrics for sure. And then I look at buyers where, again, they were just like, if I just had that extra little bit,
but then we have to look at one more factor. If that wasn't the play, if it wasn't the down payment that was at fault, could they still qualify for more? And we don't know that number. We don't know how many of those people that were the 999, that if their income was just looked at, could they qualify for more money? That's the part that I'm saying, it was an insured product. They could go up to 999. We don't know.
For sure. And I think in my experience, a lot of the people that were cuffed at that could have. They were like, I have the ability to, but I just don't have the down payment. I can carry it, I can cover it. That extra 50, that extra 100 would make the world of a difference. So I've seen a lot firsthand where I really do think the 50, the 100, the 200, is a game changer. I also think it gives people the ability to get into product that they've got more longevity in. Because I found a lot of people, when they were on the cusp of $1 million, had they had that extra 50, 100, 200, it would have put them into something that they could have stayed at for an extra 2, 3, 5 years. And I think that makes a big difference too, because transacting in real estate is not inexpensive. Yeah. And so if you get yourself more shelf life in a property, I just don't see how this doesn't have benefits.
And if you're a first-time buyer and now you can do 30-year amortization, and it doesn't have to be a newly built, constructed condo or house, then their affordability even goes up that much more. So back to what you're saying about going from, that 999 to now maybe $1,075,000, that's definitely going to open up the doors for those people. And like you said, it's not going to be everybody, and only time will tell. That we'll be able to look back at the numbers and see, how much that price point has increased in the last year. Or I think the spring market is definitely going to be a great test for that. Sure.
Yeah, I don't know how it's going to settle out this fall. There's probably,
well,
it's all speculation at this point, right? Because this doesn't come into effect
until December 15th, right? So if you think that you're going to be able to put in a closing date for, say, December 20th, you're not going to be able to get your application approved until these rules come into play. So if they come to play December 15th, then you have to put in an application on the 16th in order for that lender to approve you. But they're not going to say, hey, look, these rules are coming into effect to 15th. I'm going to close on the 20th, and it switches over. It's not going to work that way.
So you really see this being a spring market?
I think
we're
going
to see how this rolls out.
Yeah.
Right.
An early spring.
Once again, it's Alana Cerditas.
And Erica Reddy-Choquette.
And today we had Tom from Dominion Lending. If you like content like this, make sure to like, follow, and subscribe. This was Property Playbook.